These are not the people you hire to paint your bathroom. They do oil refineries and sewage treatment plants and so on, and they got wind of this, and the next thing you know, they said, "We'll paint it. We'll take care of the hazmat stuff," because of course the old paint is lead-based paint. They did everything for us. This is a union shop that does big projects, and they came in. These guys, wearing their out in the sunshine, wearing their Tyvek suits, scraping lead-based paint off the building. They were just wonderful. Finally, it was June of 2013, so it was in December that we got the agreement that we could enter into an agreement. And it took those months that Dick mentioned. While we're looking for people to help us, we had to do fundraising. We had to find people that would help us. You'll see in a second. Yeah.
Didn't that beacon have to be enclosed when they knocked off the lead tape and have to cover the tent or something?
You have to keep the stuff wet. And they also had a vacuum that ran constantly. The way you and I would do it, we would hold our paint scraper right next to the vacuum cleaner, and they had a special gizmo to do exactly that. So the crane shows up.
Yeah, who brought the crane in?
I'm getting there.
To me, that's the best part.
Okay, one more. There. How can I tell this fast enough? Real quickly, a backstory on this. Of course, it was Standard Oil, now Chevron, that financed the construction and maintenance of the beacon in the first place. Wouldn't you think they'd want to get involved in this thing? And they did want to get involved in this thing. I didn't, but Dick met with their historian, who was very helpful, dug up a significant amount of information, and then our executive director said, "Well, we need a crane," and they said, "Well, okay, we'll figure this out. We have a refinery over in Richmond, probably have cranes and stuff, and we could not get an agreement out of Chevron to get it done." It was in May, and it was June when we lifted the beacon off. It was in May, and we still didn't have a crane. And representatives at Shell Oil had said, not if, they said, when you get in trouble with Chevron, give us a call. Anybody? I hope nobody here works for Chevron. And in any case, Ron, our executive director, just finally threw up his arms and told Chevron where to go, and called Shell. And Shell said, "Come on over." And Ron met with Shell, and in 48 hours we had a signed agreement that they would not only lift the beacon down, the riggers and everything, they would also provide the crane.
If I remember right, we'd been working with Chevron for about 2 months to get that contract. It was held up in their legal department. Other people in Chevron wanted to proceed. And when Ron called Shell, I think it took 4 hours was all to get out through their legal department.
Thank you, Shell. Oh, we're getting there. So you can again, a significant part of this story is about the community that came together. We got wonderful positive publicity from newspapers, TV, and so forth. The fellow with the microphone is Dave Padilla, the reporter for KCBS Radio. I put that up not because it's me, but because Dave Padilla asked me. I did a lot of the media stuff. And Dave Padilla asked me by far the best and most professional questions of anybody. What what an asset to KCBS that guy is. He was really good. Another personality involved in this thing was this gentleman. We I just have to. I can wax poetic. Why did I get involved in the Beacon? I do like historic things. I used to restore antique clocks. Well, I still do. And when this came up, you know, it's up at the summit of Monte Diablo. I thought, what a cool thing. That'd be a fun project for me. And the other thing was that I really wanted to work with Dick. I knew that I had an incredibly capable friend and neighbor. We live about a mile from each other, and you guys are all incredibly fortunate that you had Dick here to head this. Yeah. He doesn't like to take credit for it, but he is Beacon Boy #1, believe me. So down it came to the famous undisclosed location. This is a warehouse in Concord, a secure warehouse. Again, another fellow who just saw an article in the newspaper and said, hey, I want to be part of this project. He had visited Monte Diablo as a young boy on December 7th, 1964, when Admiral Nimitz came up. So he had a story to tell. You want to tell it?
Sure. Rex Bothell was a bit of a renegade. He had a little motorcycle, and his father was very strict with him, would not let him ride it out on the streets. So he didn't tell his dad, but he grabbed an extra can of gasoline, tied that onto the back of his motorcycle, and then he was what? How old? 12. He took off riding up to the top of Mount Diablo, got up there, shook hands with Admiral Nimitz. A few days later, I don't know why his dad was meeting. Pardon? They were at Treasure Island, and Admiral Nimitz said, "Oh, Rex, I'm so good to see you again so soon." And his dad was thinking, "What is this?" And so Rex got caught.
Rex was grounded for a month, but he got back because it was he has a business in North Concord with space in his warehouse, you know, big door and above all a forklift. So Rex became an integral part of this whole thing. You know, at 1,400 pounds, this is obviously not something you're going to just lift and move around. So the Rex and his forklift and his warehouse were essential. On the left there is Beacon Boy #3, John Stewart, retired engineer from PG&E. He helped us with a lot of the electrical stuff. He liked to call himself the electrical lead. And on the right was another find. One of our great volunteers at Save Monte Diablo, Bob Cooper, spent his career at the lab in Livermore. And I was talking to him one day, say, "Hey, Bob, you know anybody that knows anything about glass?" And he said, "Yeah, as a matter of fact, I do." And I gave this fellow a call, and he said, "Yeah, come on over." Alan Frank. And I brought a piece of the old glass, the front cover. And I went to his house and I handed it to him, and he's looking at it like this. And the next thing you know, I'm serious, he's doing trigonometry in his head, trying to figure out what kind of glass this would be. So he has a PhD in optical physics. So he became an integral part of this. And on top of that, he likes historical stuff. He works today as a docent for the Niles Canyon Railroad. But it was his optical stuff that was so valuable. We talked a bit about the light bulbs, and we got wind that the light bulb that we had been using was for old, and I do mean old, movie projectors, and they would not be manufacturing that bulb for very much longer. How much longer, we don't know. And so John looked into a different kind of light bulbs. Now we are on bulb type number 3. It's a halogen bulb today. We did, just for the record, we did look into putting in LEDs, but this is such a point source of light with a reflector that we still need to have a filament. Other restoration work. This is actually brass. I know you can't tell. And it's a little scale showing the angle of inclination. I mentioned that the beacon is actually pointing downwards. And it cleaned up nicely. You can see the gasket of the front cover was, of course, asbestos, so we had to do asbestos remediation. Many of those slats of glass were damaged or, in fact, missing. So we thought we'd better replace all of those. This is kind of a fun one, again, out of the community. Somebody called and said, hey, that's a cool project, and I have a complete machine shop in Hayward. If you guys need anything, just let me know. And a fellow named Hale Foote. At first, we didn't know of anything that really needed to be machined, and we finally thought of something. And then we said, hey, can you make these little things for the cover? And he said, oh, yeah, we can make those. And so Dick and I had a tour of his machine shop that summer, 2013, and we're walking around. He had a water jet cutter, but it wasn't big enough to cut the glass.
I'm just going to point out the glass is retained by these arcs of sheet metal, and we needed to have these arcs cut again, so that's what we're working on with this machine shop in Hayward. He had a water jet cutter that could cut that arc, so simple, and so we used that, but we also needed a larger water jet cutter.
So another guy came out of the woodwork, and he said, bring it in. And anybody know what a water jet cutter is? You know, if I turned a garden hose on to you, you know, it'd be a little bit cold. If I put a nozzle on the end of the garden hose and turned it on you, it might hurt a little bit. Okay, let's run the, water pressure is what, 50, 60 pounds, something like that. Well, let's run this water pressure up to 40,000 pounds, make the jet 3 millimeters across, and fill the water with sand. Like cutting butter. These are the slats. And you can see the arc just being cut. It didn't take 5 minutes to cut this arc all the way around. And it came out perfect. We have 2 sets of glass, so if anybody breaks one, then fine. Yeah. No, it's flat. It's a flashlight. Just like your Boy Scout flashlight.
This is the front window or the front lens of that flashlight.
That's the cover, the front cover.
And the mirror is located in the back of the lamp, and then the lamp is positioned so that it's in the focus of that parabolic mirror.
We had a big deal about paint. That was one of the little side projects that I took care of, and we had the paint analyzed both for color and for material, and of course we found, I think, 7 or 9 different colors of paint on the beacon. We did not know what was the original color, which we wanted to copy if we could, and of course mostly what you have back in the day are black and white photos. And the beacon was a sort of an olive drab color when we got hold of it, as you saw, and this is the kind of photo we have. And a week before we were ready to repaint it, we got a telephone call from one of the historians up in Sacramento saying, "Hey, I found another photo in color." The beacon was I'm colorblind, but the color on this projector is washed out as could be. The beacon is silver.